Welcome to This Explainer. If you're here, it means you appreciate breaking down complex history into clear, focused insights. And today, we're diving into a genuinely incredible, largely untold story of unprecedented strategy. We're looking at a historical figure who is so often remembered just as a fighter with a weapon. But let's be real, the truth is way more fascinating. He was a brilliant, unparalleled mastermind. This is the story of the absolute strategist behind the bomb, Bhagat Singh.
Okay, so let's jump right into this central mystery. Picture the scene. It's April 8th, 1929. A young man, he's just 23 years old, walks directly into the beating heart of the British Empire's power in India. He throws a bomb. Smoke instantly fills the room, total chaos erupts. But then, shockingly, he doesn't run. He doesn't panic at all. He makes literally no attempt to escape. He just stands there in the clearing smoke, raises his hands in peaceful surrender, and calmly waits to be arrested. Which, of course, begs the ultimate question. Why on earth would someone throw a bomb just to get caught?
Well, the answer actually fell from the ceiling right alongside those bombs. As the dust settled, these pamphlets fluttered down to the floor, and they contained this one incredibly powerful quote. "It takes a loud voice to make the deaf hear." This single sentence completely flips the historical narrative. It proves without a doubt that this wasn't some act of mindless violence or chaotic anger. This was a highly calculated, deeply strategic move to command the attention of the entire world. But to really understand how a 23-year-old put together such a genius overarching plan, we have to rewind a bit.
Which brings us to part one of our story, a blood-soaked promise.
Let's rewind exactly a decade to look at the horrific origin story that really forged this young man's incredibly sharp mind. So, it's 1919. Bhagat Singh is just 12 years old, standing in a narrow lane in Amritsar. He's witnessing the immediate, devastating aftermath of the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. British soldiers had callously opened fire on a massive crowd of unarmed Indians, killing over 1,000 innocent men, women, and children. The ground was just littered with shoes and completely soaked in blood. The absolute trauma of picking up that blood-soaked soil rapidly accelerated his radical education. By his early teens, he was done. He quit British schools entirely and buried himself in heavy books on revolutions, absorbing Marx, Lenin, the Irish freedom fighters. By age 18, the transformation was complete. He wasn't just a student anymore, he was a fully formed revolutionary.
But what truly matters is what actually happened on that bloody ground when he was 12. He scooped up the soil, took it home, and made two distinct promises. Number 1, free the country. Number 2, avenge the fallen. Now, these weren't just fleeting, emotional childhood vows. They became the unwavering driving force of his entire existence. They dictated literally every single strategic move he would make from that day forward.
And that leads us perfectly into part 2, the rise of the revolutionaries. Turning those heavy childhood promises into organized, systemic action meant Bhagat couldn't do it alone, right? So he joins forces with prominent leaders, guys like Chandrasekhar Azad, Rajguru and Sukhdev, to form the HSRA. That's the Hindustan Socialist Republican Association. Their ultimate goal wasn't just to politely negotiate for basic freedom or, incremental reforms. No, they were aiming for a complete structural revolution. They wanted to tear down the colonial system entirely from its very foundations.
The real catalyst for their major escalation happened in 1928. A deeply beloved Indian leader, Lala Lajpat Rai, was leading a peaceful protest when he was brutally beaten by police under the orders of British officials. His injuries were severe, and he tragically died shortly after. The British authorities just assumed that no one would answer for it, that the population would mourn, stay quiet, and accept their place. But man, they were wrong. The HSRA decided it was time to fulfill that second childhood promise. It was time for revenge.
Their plot to avenge Lajpat Rai was incredibly bold, even though, honestly, it didn't go exactly to plan. Under the cover of darkness, they actually mistakenly assassinated a different police officer, a man named Saunders, instead of their intended target. But despite killing the wrong man, they successfully slipped away from the massive manhunt that followed. And the underlying message? Oh, it was delivered loud and clear to the colonizers. They had forced a 200-year-old, globally dominant empire to finally fear the name Bhagat Singh.
Which sets the stage for part 3, the master plan.
After that assassination in the dark, Bhagat had a massive realization. Killing single officers one by one, that wasn't going to dismantle a massive, entrenched global empire. He needed the world's attention. And this realization led to the most audacious pivot in strategy imaginable. Bhagat, alongside his comrade Batukeshwar Dutt, crafted what we'll call the assembly strategy. Step 1. target the Central Legislative Assembly, which was basically the British Parliament of India. Step 2, throw 2 bombs and drop those pamphlets. But crucially, these bombs were specifically designed to make a ton of noise, not to kill anyone. And step 3, this is the true unbelievable genius of the plan. Refuse to escape and simply wait for arrest. The sheer strategic audacity of choosing to surrender is just mind-blowing. He was willingly, deliberately walking right into the jaws of the enemy to execute the very next phase of his plan.
Talk about a massive disconnect. This perfectly highlights the gap between what the empire thought was happening and the actual reality. The British fully expected they were dealing with a simple, violent radical just trying to cause mass casualties and instill terror. But in reality, they were dealing with a highly calculated political strategist who was weaponizing his own arrest for global publicity. He entirely, 100% wanted to be caught.
This brings us to part 4, the global microphone. That deliberate arrest set the stage for the true brilliance of his PR strategy to unfold right from behind bars. Bhagat intentionally weaponized the British legal system. He knew a trial would generate explosive headlines. So he used the highly publicized courtroom proceedings not to mount a legal defense, but to broadcast India's freedom struggle directly to the world. He essentially hacked their own justice system and turned it into a massive, undeniable microphone for the revolution. Once locked permanently inside a jail cell, he was subjected to severe beatings and horrendous conditions. But he didn't break. Actually, he escalated his protest. 116 days. Think about that number for a second. That is how long he led a brutal hunger strike in jail. Surviving on absolutely no food, drinking only water, he pushed his body to the absolute brink of human endurance just to protest the treatment of political prisoners. And the wildest part? This extreme, harrowing sacrifice worked brilliantly. Suddenly, newspapers all the way in London were publishing articles questioning the identity of this 23-year-old who refused to eat. The press in New York broadcasted the updates of his strike to American readers, and media in Paris brought an unprecedented international spotlight directly onto India's plate. He had successfully put immense, suffocating global pressure on his captors, all while sitting inside a locked, heavily guarded cell. It was checkmate. He had engineered the ultimate trap. The British Empire was backed into an impossible, paradoxical corner by a single 23-year-old prisoner. Think about it. If they let him die from the hunger strike, he becomes a massive, global martyr and sparks uncontrollable outrage. If they cave to his demands to save his life, he wins the political battle and legitimizes the revolutionaries. Either way, the empire loses.
Let's look at how this all culminates in Part 5, the birth of a legend. Ultimately, the British courts rushed their proceedings, completely panicking, and handed down their verdict. On March 23, 1931, Bhagat Singh, Rajguru and Sukhdev were sentenced to death by hanging. The sentence was carried out in secret, well ahead of schedule. Bhagat was dead at just 23 years old.
But the British totally miscalculated the aftermath. His final words as he walked to the gallows were cries of revolution, and his last expressed wish was for his own martyrdom to serve the greater cause. The British firmly believed they had just executed a radical and permanently silenced a problem. Instead, they had stepped perfectly into his final strategic trap. His calculated sacrifice lit a massive, inextinguishable fire across India. It fueled a nationwide movement that would go on to help shatter the British Empire entirely just 16 years later.
Which leaves us with a really powerful question to think about. What is the true difference between a rebel who fights an empire and a revolutionary who outsmarts it? Bhagat Singh wasn't just a bomber. He was a brilliant thinker and a master strategist who played a high-stakes game the empire didn't even realize they were in. Thank you so much for joining this explainer. I really hope this structured look at his incredible life gave you a whole new perspective and leaves you wanting to learn even more about the hidden masterminds of history.